The Glirans had always been known as the weakest race in the galaxy. With their frail, paper-thin bodies, spindly limbs, and oversized, watery eyes, they were the universal symbol of helplessness. Their homeworld, Elian Prime, was a lush and resource-rich paradise, but the Glirans had no way of defending it. For millennia, they had survived only by surrendering to stronger races, paying hefty tributes, and offering their planet's resources in exchange for protection. This had earned them mockery from the galaxy's more warlike species, who derisively called them the featherweights of the stars, but even tributes could not buy peace forever. The Zorvok Empire, a notoriously ruthless coalition of militaristic species, had begun annexing nearby systems, and the Glirans knew it was only a matter of time before their turn came. Their pleas to other races for help were ignored. To most, the Glirans were not worth the risk. They were seen as a race destined to fade away in the face of galactic evolution. In desperation, the Gliran Council made a controversial decision. They reached out to the humans of Earth, a species still relatively new to the galactic stage but known for their resilience, creativity, and unpredictability. Humanity had faced its own share of challenges in its early days, clawing its way up from countless wars, disasters, and near extinctions. Perhaps, the Council reasoned, the humans could teach them something that no other species had. When the Glirans' request reached Earth, it was met with mixed reactions. Many humans saw the Glirans as hopeless, a race so physically weak and pacifistic that no amount of training could change their nature. But others saw the situation differently. Among them was Captain Nora Carter, a former Marine turned interstellar trainer. Nora was known for her unorthodox methods and her unyielding belief in the potential for growth, even in the most unlikely candidates. Strength, Nora told her superiors when she volunteered for the mission, isn't just about muscle. It's about will. If the Glirans have even a spark of determination, we can fan it into a flame. A month later, Nora stood on Elian Prime, surveying the group of Gliran volunteers who had been gathered for training. There were only 50 of them, a tiny number for an entire race, but they were the bravest their species could offer. Still, bravery didn't count for much when she saw their delicate frames struggling to carry the basic supplies for the training camp. One Gliran nearly toppled over while carrying a small crate of water bottles, while another gasped for breath after jogging a mere 100 meters. Nora's initial enthusiasm dimmed slightly as she observed them. They were even weaker than she'd anticipated. But she kept her doubts to herself. "All right," she said, her voice firm but encouraging. "You've taken the hardest step already, showing up. Now let's see what you've got." The first week was disastrous. The Glirans couldn't complete even the simplest exercises. Push-ups left them trembling, squats sent them crashing to the ground, and even holding a plank for 10 seconds seemed impossible. Worse, their mindset was defeatist. Any challenge was met with complaints of, "We're not built for this," or "We're just not like you humans." By the end of the week, several Glirans were on the verge of quitting. Nora knew she had to act fast to keep the group together. One evening, as the trainees sat slumped in exhaustion, Nora gathered them around a campfire. Instead of giving them another speech about perseverance, she told them a story. When humans first reached for the stars, she began, "We weren't the strongest species either. In fact, most of the galaxy thought we were fools for even trying. We had no natural advantages, no claws, no thick hides, no venom. But do you know what we had? We had fire in our hearts. We didn't give up, no matter how many times we fell. And every fall taught us how to rise stronger." She paused, looking at the wide-eyed Glirans. "You don't need to be born strong. You just need to decide that you won't stay weak." The story struck a chord with the group. For the first time, they began to see their weakness not as a curse but as a challenge to overcome. The next day, Nora adjusted the training program. Instead of focusing solely on physical exercises, she introduced lessons in strategy, teamwork, and resilience. She also brought in human-made exoskeletons to assist the Glirans with heavier tasks, gradually reducing their reliance on the technology as their strength grew. Progress was slow, but it was steady. By the end of the first month, one of the trainees, a young Gliran named Glirans, managed to lift a weighted bar for the first time. It was a small victory, but it sent a ripple of hope through the group. If Lyrics could improve, maybe they all could. Nora watched them with growing pride. The Glirans had a long way to go, but for the first time, they were beginning to believe in themselves. And that, she knew, was the first step toward transforming the weakest race in the galaxy into something far greater. The first few weeks of training were an unrelenting storm of failure. For every minor success, there were dozens of setbacks. The Glirans, despite their initial enthusiasm, found themselves pushed far beyond their limits. Each exercise exposed their fragile bodies and shattered their confidence anew. The group was physically exhausted, emotionally drained, and questioning whether they had made the right decision in seeking humanity's help. One afternoon, during a strength training session, a Gliran named Vin collapsed while attempting to lift a small, human-designed weight. His thin arms gave out, and the bar clattered to the ground, narrowly missing his foot. The other Glirans froze, their wide eyes filled with fear and doubt. Vin's voice trembled as he looked up at Captain Nora Carter. "We're not like you," he whispered. "We'll never be like you." Nora crouched down next to him, her voice calm but firm. "No, you won't be like us," she said. "You'll be better in your own way. But you've got to stop measuring yourself against where we are and focus on where you're going." She stood and addressed the group, her voice rising. "Strength isn't just about muscle. It's about persistence. Every species in this galaxy has limits. And do you know what makes humans different? We don't stop at ours. We push, and we keep pushing, no matter how much it hurts." Her words planted a fragile seed of determination, but the Glirans needed more than inspiration. They needed results. Recognizing the futility of treating the Glirans like human trainees, Nora restructured their program. She introduced gravity adjustment chambers, which allowed them to train under conditions tailored to their frail bodies, gradually increasing the intensity over time. Nutritional supplements, custom-engineered by human scientists, boosted their recovery rates and accelerated muscle growth. Even their training equipment was redesigned: lighter weights, smaller resistance bands, and modified machines that catered to their unique physiology. But the greatest challenge wasn't physical, it was mental. The Glirans had spent centuries conditioned to believe in their inferiority, and breaking that mindset required relentless effort. Nora began integrating psychological resilience exercises into their training. She had them meditate on their goals, visualize their progress, and celebrate even the smallest victories. Slowly, the Glirans began to believe that change was possible. The first breakthrough came during an obstacle course. Lyrics, the youngest and smallest of the trainees, was tasked with climbing a 6-foot wall. For a Gliran, the task seemed insurmountable. As he reached halfway, his arms shook violently, and he looked ready to give up. "Don't stop, Lyrics," Nora shouted. "One more pull. Just one more." With a guttural cry, Lyrics heaved himself over the top, collapsing on the other side. The group erupted in cheers, and for the first time Lyrics smiled. A small but triumphant smile that spread hope through the ranks. By the end of the month, the Glirans were no longer the same fragile beings who had started the program. They were still far from strong, but now they had something they'd never had before: resolve. Months of relentless training had passed, and the transformation of the Glirans was nothing short of remarkable. What had once seemed impossible was now their new reality. Their bodies, once frail and brittle, showed signs of strength and resilience. While they would never match the raw physical power of other races, their agility and precision had become unmatched, honed through grueling drills and human innovation. Captain Nora Carter stood before the group, pride gleaming in her eyes. "You've come farther than anyone thought you could. But there's one thing left to prove: whether you can hold your own in combat." The Glirans' final test came in the form of a military exercise against a human squad. The rules were simple. The Glirans would face off against their trainers in a mock battle using non-lethal weapons. It was an opportunity to showcase not only their physical growth, but also their newfound understanding of strategy, teamwork, and courage. The Glirans moved into position, their natural intelligence and agility guiding their tactics. They'd learned from humanity's example to think creatively, using their smaller size to navigate terrain and set up ambushes. When the battle began, the humans expected an easy victory. But the Glirans had something to prove. Lyrics, now a natural leader, coordinated the team with precision. "Flank left. Keep moving," he shouted, his voice steady and commanding. The humans were caught off guard as the Glirans used their enhanced speed and agility to outmaneuver them. They darted through cover, disabling human soldiers with stun rounds while evading counterattacks. One of the trainers, Sergeant Kyle Mason, smirked as he lined up a shot on a Gliran hiding behind a rock. But before he could pull the trigger, a pair of Glirans leapt from the trees above, disarming him in a fluid, coordinated strike. By the time the exercise ended, the Glirans had won a decisive victory. The humans watching from the sidelines erupted into applause. For the first time, the Glirans weren't seen as weaklings. They were warriors. Word of their transformation began to spread across the galaxy. Other species who had once mocked the Glirans now watched with growing unease. The idea that the featherweights of the stars could rise to such heights was a shocking shift in the galactic order. But not everyone celebrated their success. The Zorvok Empire, long accustomed to preying on weaker races, took notice. To them, the Glirans' rise was not an inspiration but a threat. They launched a surprise assault on Elian Prime, hoping to crush the Glirans before their transformation was complete. When the Zorvok forces landed, they were met with something they hadn't expected: resistance. The Glirans, armed with human-designed weapons and fortified by their months of training, stood their ground. They fought with precision, discipline, and a fierceness that shocked their attackers. Captain Carter fought alongside them, but it was the Glirans who led the charge. Lyrics and his team pushed back the invaders, their agility and strategic thinking proving decisive. By the end of the battle, the Zorvok forces were routed, retreating in disgrace. The Glirans had not only defended their homeworld, they had shattered the galaxy's perception of them. They were no longer the weakest race. They were warriors, forged in the fires of human perseverance and their own unyielding spirit. The galaxy would never underestimate them again. The battle for Elian Prime was over, but its consequences rippled across the galaxy. For centuries, the Glirans had been viewed as weaklings destined to depend on stronger species for survival. Now, they stood as a symbol of transformation and resilience. Their victory over the Zorvok Empire marked a turning point not just for their race, but for the balance of power in the galaxy. In the days following the battle, Captain Nora Carter stood before the Gliran Council, flanked by Lyrics and his fellow warriors. The once dignified but timid council members now looked at their people with pride. "You've given us something we never thought possible, Captain Carter," said Elder Vorin, the oldest member of the council. His voice trembled, not with fear, but with emotion. "Hope, strength, a future." Nora shook her head. "I didn't give you anything you didn't already have. All I did was show you the path. You chose to walk it." The council's gratitude was evident, but Nora knew that this victory was only the beginning. The Zorvok Empire would not accept their defeat quietly. And with the galaxy now aware of the Glirans' newfound strength, other factions might see them as a threat or a prize to conquer. Realizing this, the Glirans made a bold decision. No longer content to hide behind alliances or pay tributes, they began forging their own destiny. With the help of their human allies, they established the Elian Defense Force, a standing military that would protect their homeworld and ensure their independence. The humans didn't just provide weapons or training. They shared their philosophies: the value of adaptability, the importance of unity, and the relentless drive to overcome any obstacle. It was a collaboration unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. The Glirans quickly became known for their innovative tactics. Where other races relied on brute force, the Glirans used precision and strategy. They developed new technologies, blending their own advanced understanding of energy systems with human combat principles. Their soldiers were swift, disciplined, and efficient, a testament to what could be achieved when determination met ingenuity. Meanwhile, the Zorvok Empire licked its wounds, but their defeat at Elian Prime sent shockwaves through their ranks. Smaller, oppressed species began to rise up, inspired by the Glirans' story. Resistance movements flourished, and the Zorvoks found themselves fighting wars on multiple fronts. In time, Glirans became a symbol of the new Gliran identity. His leadership during the battle and his unwavering belief in his people's potential made him a hero to his race. He was appointed as the first commander of the Elian Defense Force, a role he accepted with quiet humility. "We were weak," Glirans said during his inauguration. "But weakness isn't a death sentence. It's a challenge. And we've shown the galaxy that no challenge is too great when faced with courage and unity." For Nora, watching the Glirans rise was bittersweet. Her mission was complete, but she couldn't deny the bond she'd formed with them. As she prepared to leave Elian Prime and return to Earth, Glirans approached her. "We'll never forget what you taught us," he said. Nora smiled. "You taught yourselves. I just gave you the tools." As her ship ascended into the stars, Nora looked down at Elian Prime one last time. The once fragile race she had met months ago now stood tall, ready to carve their place in the galaxy. And somewhere in the far reaches of space, the balance of power shifted. The weakest race in the galaxy had trained with humans, and now no one could stop them.